Hi everyone, welcome to the over mantle mirror tutorial. Today we're going to make this really stylish over mantle mirror that sits perfectly on top of the fire surround. You can make it in any colour and it adds a really elegant touch to your room. So here are the pieces. The white pieces are in matte board and the black are in craft board, and we'll need some kitchen foil or mirrored vinyl. Normally I would make these in all the same colour, but I've done them differently today so you can help see the layers and how we build up this over mantle mirror. First thing we're going to do is glue the two matte board back pieces together. You want a really nice thin layer of glue spread out evenly and up to the edges. And then we simply place one on top of the other and make sure all the edges are sort of straight, neat and matching. And then I like to press mine under a weight to keep them flat while they dry. Next we get the two long pieces of matte board and we glue those together. They're exactly the same size as each other. And again line the edges up and press those together while they dry. So now we take the two widest and longest pieces of craft board and the two largest layers that go around the frame and we glue those together. We need to be a little bit careful removing these frames of craft board from the Cricut mat. Mine just tore one of the layers slightly, but I can glue that down in this next process. Next we get the narrowest frame and the medium frame and we glue those onto each other. The frames, the inner piece of the frames line up so that you get the gradient stepping in from the outside. And I like to do as much gluing as I can before we put the frame onto the foil mirror so that lessens the chance of getting any marks on the actual mirror. So now we take a piece of kitchen foil. It is very delicate, so you need to treat it with a light touch, and we get the two pieces of matte board that we previously glued and pressed. We apply glue to one side of the matte board back. And we want a nice even layer so there are no bumps that show through the foil. If you have any creases or bumps, you can lightly roll it with a brayer and then place the mat board backing down, turn it over and lightly bray it to get rid of as many bumps as you can. This will not be a perfect mirror surface. A vinyl mirror would be very good. I didn't have any to hand, and I actually quite like how foil isn't a true reflective surface, so when I'm taking photographs you don't see me or the camera in the photograph, and I age this later on and I'll explain how to do that as well. So now we take the two dried and pressed layers, the thinner medium one and then the two thicker ones, and we're going to glue those onto each other with the thin and the medium one on top and the thicker frame underneath. So now we're going to assemble the bottom ledge of the mirror. The mat board sits in the middle. It goes on top of the largest craft board piece. It lays flush at the back and then has a ledge around three sides. And the smallest top piece does the same, so that it will sit flat against the wall at the back. You could measure this out, but I eyeball it. It's usually quite easy to see if you've just got an equal gap at either end and it's flat to the back, so the front gap sorts itself out. I like to push them down on the table so I know it's definitely flat at the back. And then we glue the mat board middle onto the craft board base. If you want to change these layers, it's completely up to you. You could cut more craft board or mat board layers and change the height or the sort of amount of steps that you have. This is completely flexible. And just at this point, make sure you know where your back is. So you put the top piece flat onto the bottom piece with the same flat edge. And again, push them down on the mat to make sure they're flat and check that you've got the same gap at either end. And it does look strange, all these different colours, but I did that, as I said earlier, just so that you could see the difference in the layers. Black on black, which I do the fireplace in, originally was very difficult to see. Again, I like to press everything at every stage. Stops it warping and squeezes out any air in the gaps. We now have the foil that's dried onto the mat board back. You need to handle this as lightly as possible. I've got some old craft scissors here and I trim the foil as close to the edge of the mat board as I could. I did try using a knife and the knife pulled the foil, so I found for this foil anyway that scissors were better. So now we take the complete frame, dry fit it and check that it actually fits on the mirror and all the edges are where they should be. Lightly apply some glue. We don't want too much squeezing out onto the mirrored surface. And then gently put it onto the mirrored surface. I like to match my corners up first, and then the rest of it should really fall into line because it's quite firm and stiff by this point. And then just check all around. You don't want the frame overhanging the mirror at the front because it won't sit upright on the ledge properly then. And then just check all the edges have been glued down and lined up, and then press that while it dries. When it's dried, we apply glue along the bottom edge. And we want to line up the flat back of the ledge onto the workbench and lay the mirrored back down so that the flat back of the ledge and the mirror line up perfectly, and also make sure that the mirror back is central to the ledge so you've got the same gap either side. Press that down to make sure that it's adhered all the way along, and if you've got some excess glue that's squeezed out, wipe that off gently. We don't want to tear the mirrored surface. It's all squarely cut, so it should fit pretty nicely at a nice 90-degree angle. And then leave that to dry. So here on the right is the first one I made. It's slightly smaller because I had a smaller mantelpiece I wanted it to fit on. And you can see here I've just used some very light brown acrylic, some black speckles and some white, and just washed them on very gently and dabbed them off to create the sort of antiqued glass effect. If any of the foil you can see at the side edges where you couldn't get close enough with the scissors, I just burnished that down with my fingernail and then painted over that with a Sharpie in the same colour of my mirror frame, so black in this instance. And also in this one I put a tiny little strip of craftboard in there to cover up the joint where the mirror meets the ledge. That was very fiddly, but did neaten it up a bit. But on the second mirror, I didn't think I needed to do that, it looked neat enough. So there we have the finished mirror sitting on top of the fire surround. If you'd like to make the fire surround, I'll put a link for that video in the description below and on screen now. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure to hit subscribe and notifications. And as always, our files can be found on Etsy in our Spellbound Miniatures shop and are included free in our monthly membership group. Take care and we'll see you soon.